It's time for the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Each week, Trading Stocks Made Easy demystifies stock trading and investing so you can profit big. And now, here's the host of Trading Stocks Made Easy, the wealthy investor, Tyrone Jackson.
Well, hello there. It's Tyrone Jackson, the wealthy investor, and welcome back to another episode of Trading Stocks Made Easy. I always love the time that we have together, and I know I say that at the beginning of every show, but I really do. Hey, listen, what we do on this show is to try to expose you to as many real people as possible who have changed their lives through stock market trading. One of the things that I do with the Wealthy Investor Program is I try to demystify the stock market so that you can profit big. Now, what does that mean? That means if you're really curious about producing wealth and residual income for yourself, you can listen to this show and it's a great place to start. Now, many of my students are in the entertainment business. Sometimes they're in front of the camera. Sometimes they're behind the camera. Many of my students are not in the entertainment business. So when we have someone on from the entertainment business, it's just to kind of take you behind the scenes of what goes on in that world and to inspire you and let you know that even if you don't have thousands and thousands of dollars to get started, the most important thing is that you open an online brokerage account and at least start investing. You might not be ready to start buying and trading stocks, but at least start investing. Well, on today's show, I am so happy to have had the opportunity to talk to my friend Bob Celestin, who's an entertainment attorney in New York City, who's worked with some of the biggest names in the entertainment business, particularly on the music side. In this particular interview that you're going to hear, Bob talks about how he's had a shift in mindset and in wealth creation, even though he was negotiating contracts worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. This is one episode I assure you, you do not want to miss. Don't go anywhere. I'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Want to learn more about how to trade and invest in the stock market? Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products. That's thewealthyinvestor.net/products and order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success audio series. This easy-to-follow 5-CD audio series and manual will teach you the basics of how to buy and sell stocks, how to collect quarterly dividends for life, plus hidden income generating strategies like covered call writing and volatility trading. Start creating financial freedom right now. Get the financial education you need to get ahead. Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products.
And welcome back. Hey, listen, if you don't live in New York or Los Angeles, which are where my live classes are, you could always start your membership online at witradeschool.com. There you can follow all of my major and minor strategies, and every single week I answer your trading and investing questions as a member of WI Trade School. So really getting a financial education is only a mouse click away. Bob Celestin is here. As I promised at the top of the show, he is live patched in with us. Bob, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tyrone. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. First of all, I thank you for coming on the podcast. You know how much I appreciate it, right?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored. 'Cause I've been listening to your podcast for like past year and a half now. So who would have thought that I'd be on it?
Well, you're on it, my friend. And you know the Pope even listens to the show. Did you hear that one?
I didn't hear that one, so I hope you sing a prayer for us.
I hope so. Hey, listen, one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you here is you're one of New York City's top entertainment attorneys. Everyone knows by now you're also a Wealthy Investor student, and I really want to track your history not only through entertainment law, but then also through the stock market and how you got started. So let's go back a little bit. Where were you born?
Brooklyn, New York.
Okay, you were born in Brooklyn, New York, and your parents, you're of Haitian descent, is that correct?
Parents are immigrants from Haiti. That's correct.
Okay. And when you grow up in a Haitian household, there is a certain mindset, particularly about money, right? What did you hear about money growing up?
About money, what I heard was save it. You know, it was just save it. My mom always had a motto whenever I wanted something, as most kids do. I want this, I want that. And my mother would say, it's better for you to get what you need, not always what you want. So I thought that was kind of like a guide. To this day, it still is a guiding sort of like mantra of my life.
Now, I know you and I have had some private conversations. There were certain beliefs about what goes on with money when it comes to excess. What did you hear about having excess when you were growing up?
In my family, my mindset, the mindset of my parents was, you know, you get what you need, not always what you want. My parents were not assimilated into American culture at that point, where they were not overly materialistic. They were not concerned about, trying to get, like my mother would always boast that she wasn't trying to get fur coats and jewelry. She wanted to put all the money that she had into taking care of her children. My father was also pretty, simple. Like, he'd get a car. He'd ride the car until the car just, died, and then he'd just buy another car. So there was no thought about, and he would get a practical car. He didn't need a luxury car or anything like that. So I pretty much adhered to that same thought pattern or same sort of like way of being, even to this day to a large extent.
Now, it's also interesting. Would you characterize yourself as like a really great student in school?
Yes, I was very good at school.
Yes.
And that's another part of Haitian culture, too, is, at least traditional Haitian culture was very much into like education. My parents, they never went to college in their home country of Haiti. They came to America, and they were almost obsessive to the point of making sure that their children had the best education possible.
And this is the other thing I loved about your history. So you get up into high school. You're a really good student. Is that correct?
Correct. National Honor Society.
National Honor Society. Unlike me, my friend. This is why I'm so excited. See, I try to hang out with people who are smarter than me. And when it comes to college, you wind up getting into a pretty prestigious school, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I ended up going to Yale University, although at the time I didn't know how prestigious it was, nor did my parents. Short story was that we had next-door neighbors that were from England, and when I started getting all these applications, I got one for Yale, and my next-door neighbors said, hey, you should apply to it. And my parents didn't know what it was and, the significance of it, so I applied, and fortunately I got in. And even until I graduated, my parents still didn't know how big a deal it was. So it wasn't like they knew that, hey, you should go to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, whatever. It was just get into the best school possible.
I so admired that because my mother was like, listen, if you could make it into any school and get out of here, man, that would be like a blessing, right? So it was a big contrast. Now, once you graduated from Yale, you had an interest in law. Is that right?
Well, the way I got into law was, interestingly enough, I was pre-med going into Yale. I was very much into science. And if you know anything about, Caribbean parents, especially Haitian parents, there's always one of their kids is going to be a doctor. That was like my mom's and my dad's dream. Like, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor. And for a while there, I was on that track. But two things happened. One was I got injured playing basketball and spent a night at the Yale New Haven Hospital. And my roommate was an older gentleman who moaned all night in pain. And I quickly came to the realization that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life around so much suffering. That's number one. And number two, my first day at Yale, I ran into and met these fellow classmates that were DJs. And I was very much into music at the time. In high school, disco was very big in New York at the time. And I gravitated towards going to clubs and dancing because that was my way of meeting girls, and was always fascinated about music and enjoyed it tremendously. And so I met these DJs, and I become part of the DJ collective that they had put together, and I became a DJ on the radio at Yale. Yale had a radio station. And simultaneously, I took a course that ironically was taught by a white professor, and the course was about black culture. And the premise of the course was that American culture is created by or very heavily influenced by black people. So I was like, wow, because I'm on the radio station and I'm playing music from different parts of the country, like funk music, Parliament Funkadelics, George Clinton, things like that I had never been exposed to while I was in New York. And I take this course, and also at the time in New York, hip-hop was in its infancy. And so armed with this knowledge that I had gotten from this course, I knew that there was a culture being created. Now, I would not have been able to tell you back then that 40-some-odd years later, it's actually 44 years ago is when hip-hop started, that it would be billion-dollar industry, that it would be a global industry. I would not have been able to tell you that would be the case. But I knew that, it was a new cultural art form that was being created, and I was excited to become a part of it. So because I couldn't dance, I couldn't rap at the time, a few of my record label executives that would come to my radio station suggested that I should think about the law. And I was like, well, why? Well, because lawyers run the music business, and there was also a need for more black attorneys. It's a black art form. You need more black attorneys. Mm-hmm. So that was what got me into going to law school, going to Columbia, and becoming a lawyer.
So you went to Columbia grad school for law?
I went to Columbia Law School, yes, in New York City.
Man, you are just, I mean, how smart are you?
Not that smart, shit. I'd be a millionaire like you right now if I was.
Well, don't worry. You're doing just fine. Okay, so we've got the Columbia Law, and then do you originally go to work for a record label? Is that what happens?
No, I got out of school and worked for a corporate law firm. I was doing asset-based financing for 2.5 years at a major Park Avenue law firm called K. Scholler, Fearman, Hayes, and Handler. I liked it. I enjoyed it, but ultimately, at the end of the day, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into music, and it was very difficult to come out of law school and get a job at a music law firm or even sort of like a record label. They wanted you to have at least a couple of years' experience as an attorney before they would consider your application to be an employee of theirs. So I had to put in the time. Meanwhile, during that time period, and we're talking 85, 86, 84, 83, 84, 85, it was sort of like a black renaissance, another black renaissance in New York, because hip-hop was now becoming ascendant. And then you had, on the film side, people like Spike Lee, who had She's Gotta Have It. On the film side, you had Russell Simmons, who was creating Def Jam and managing a lot of up-and-coming hip-hop artists. So it was a very exciting time to be young in New York City, with this hip hop culture starting to manifest itself. And I got caught up into that. After work, I was at the clubs, I was at all these different kind of like cultural events that were going on, networking, meeting people, and just having a lot of fun.
And, one of the things about the hip hop culture is, as you've mentioned, it's really turned into a business. So how did you make that transition from someone who enjoyed the culture to being a legal representative for some of the biggest names in the business?
So after my 2-year stint as a corporate lawyer, I started sending out resumes and ultimately got a job. My first legal job in the music industry was at Arista Records in their legal department. Arista Records was a label that was founded by a very famous music mogul named Clive Davis, who was an attorney at first. And, he still is an attorney. He was an attorney, always an attorney. So I got my first legal education in the music industry at Arista Records, and that was the home of Whitney Houston. So I got a chance to participate in the negotiation of her second album and just learn the behind the scenes of negotiating her music contract, and really learned a lot about recording contracts, producer agreements at that time. So that was my first legal job, and I wasn't representing Whitney. I was representing the record label to whom Whitney Houston, Kenny G, for example, a rap artist named Houdini were signed to. And then at that same time, I developed a relationship with a guy named Andre Harrell. He was a former rapper, and he had started a company called Uptown Records. And he was starting it out of his apartment in Brooklyn, not too far away from where I lived. And Uptown Records ultimately became the home of Mary J. Blige, Diddy, or Puff Daddy as he's known now, and Guy and Heavy D and the Boys, and a number of artists who merged hip-hop and R&B together to create this new art form called New Jack Swing. So he recruited me to come work with him. I was the vice president and general manager of Uptown Records for 3 years, and got a chance to not only improve upon and increase my legal education, my legal and business education, but also got a chance to be in the studio with some of these remarkable artists, and got a chance to kind of like develop my legal and business skills, as well as indulge my creative tendencies, so to speak, or creative aspirations, by also being involved on a creative level with a lot of these artists.
And, you have really, Clive Davis is responsible for so many, the biggest acts in music, Alicia Keys, Gino Vanelli. The list just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Absolutely.
And what I love about your story, these contracts, without giving out any numbers, some of them, these advances were really large at the time, right?
Absolutely.
So,
Millions
we're
of
talking
dollars. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so you saw all of this money kind of flowing backwards and forwards, and you were negotiating both terms and conditions, right?
Correct.
Okay. So millions and millions of dollars flowing through your mind, so to speak, was not a big deal, right?
No, it wasn't. Because remember, before that, I was a corporate lawyer. So I was representing banks, really. And they were, the checks that these banks were playing around with were, 50, 60, $70 million transactions. So, that was definitely still a lot more than what record labels and record deals were,
Okay.
But things were in the millions for sure. And the record industry at the time was just booming. CDs had just been introduced, and it was just like printing money in the music industry. If you had the right artist and CD sales were flourishing, the music industry was just doing incredibly well.
I could do just, 4 episodes on your history alone, but this is Trading Stocks Made Easy because I want to progress here just a little bit, because somewhere along the line, with all of this money flowing, you get exposed to stock market trading and our paths cross.
Right.
And you discover something called a financial education.
Correct.
Tell us about when you first discovered the stock market, what resonated with you as something that you should be doing with your money, your wealth, and ultimately for your clients?
Well, I first got introduced to it in the 90s, especially in the late 90s, the tech bubble. Everybody got into stocks. So I started learning about them. I took a couple of courses on stock trading and that kind of thing, hired a financial advisor to help me, and had, a nice little 6-figure portfolio at one point, heavily weighted in the tech era, or tech stocks, I should say. And, as you know, whenever there's a bubble, there's going to ultimately be something that bursts it. And the tech bubble burst, and, I got hurt. I lost a lot of money. And my biggest issue with financial advisors at the time was I subsequently learned that they didn't really teach me certain strategies or techniques that would have helped me limit my losses. I ultimately took a course that was taught by a guy named Wade Cook. It was about the stock market. And he ultimately got arrested for something. I forget exactly what it was. But the course I thought was really instrumental because, he was teaching stock trading techniques and talk about limit orders and stop loss and all these different things that my financial advisor at that time did not teach me. But then after I lost all this money, I got gun shy. I didn't want to get involved in any more stocks because I got really hit hard. And I didn't have a financial education. I didn't really understand totally what I was doing. Or I didn't know enough to have a real, substantive conversation with my financial advisor so that I could help maybe, reduce my risk. What ultimately got me back and ultimately got me into your class was the creation of this software called Napster in 1999.
Yes.
Which came and totally decimated the music industry. So up until that point, I wasn't even really trying to be a lawyer at the time. And what I mean by that is I was an attorney for sure, but I was trying to get more involved on the creative end. I was managing various artists, and I had set up my own record label, and I was really trying to get more involved in that aspect of the business. And because the music industry was doing so well, I just kept getting clients and building a practice. Right? I wasn't trying to do that, but it was just I kept getting clients, and the money was great, and it was great. Then Napster comes and totally decimates the industry, and at that point, I'm a solo practitioner. I'm working for myself, and I saw an immediate reduction in my business.
Right.
And fortunately, I ended up doing some other things. I was managing a recording artist that was doing very well, and I was able to stem the tide to some degree and maintain my business and survive. All I was doing was surviving at the time. And so when you work for yourself, you are always trying to figure out, I didn't want to go back to working for another law firm, been there, done that. I didn't want to work for a record label, been there, done that. Because I've learned that I don't really respond well to having people tell me what to do. I think I may get that from my father because he had his own business also. So I kept trying to figure out, what other ways can I, learn that would help me make money and supplement what I was getting on the legal side in terms of earnings.
Right.
I read a book by a guy named Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad that really opened up my eyes in terms of, and got me more open to getting a financial education. Right. So he kind of opened the door and made it easier for me to meet someone like you. And the way I ultimately got to you was one of your pupils that I had a relationship with, and I told him, man, I'm trying to learn a little bit about the stock market and everything like this, and it's very difficult. And, I keep running into these roadblocks. I say, hey, you know what, you should think about this guy, Tyrone Jackson. I said, who, Tyrone? You better call Tyrone. From that song Erykah Badu.
Yes.
You better call Tyrone.
Yes.
And I went to one of your introductory classes, and I was like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I need.
Right.
Everything you said made sense. one could argue that you were bashing financial advisors, but I have to say, having had experience with financial advisors, I mean, a lot of stuff that you were saying was true. You seem to, you provided a really a simpler, clear-cut method to creating residual income.
Right. And for those who listen to the show on a regular basis, we all know that I'm talking about, or that you're talking about, covered calls.
Correct.
Right. Because it's the number one trade for a self-directed investor, someone managing their own money, because it creates residual income every single month.
Correct.
Okay.
And I had been exposed to options, prior to meeting you, but for me, it was very complicated because I don't really have the time to be a full-time stock trader, or I have a practice, so I just it didn't work for me, and
right.
It was very complicated, and bear spreads and all this other stuff. I was like, this is driving me crazy. And your method, for someone like me who doesn't really have the time to be looking at the Dow every day, or in front of my computer looking at stock prices and all this stuff, this is perfect. It was, it's like manna from heaven. You know what I'm saying?
Well, thank you. I know exactly what you're saying. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is with all of this money flowing around in the music business, and there's still money there, although technology has shifted the business greatly, you find that a lot of your clients and people who are coming into these seven-figure deals, they don't have a financial education, even though they're making millions. Why is that, in your view?
It's the way America is. I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but what's interesting is a lot of the Trump supporters aren't in the market. You would think that, they would be in the market and taking advantage of the stock market, but they're not. Americans, generally speaking, are not educated. Even as much as, here I am, I went to Yale University, which is, grade school, Columbia. I didn't have a financial education. There were no courses unless I was, now had I been maybe an economics major or something like that, or went and got an MBA, maybe that would have been a different, I would have had a different mindset, or I would have learned a different set of skills. But, for those of us who are just getting, Bachelor of Arts degrees, there's no one teaching about financial education. My parents weren't up on it. Oh, their whole thing was save, put your money in the CD, and then that's that. So artists, generally speaking, are just representative or reflective of the overall general American public. And even more so, what's even worse for them is that they come from impoverished, backgrounds. They don't have any kind of understanding of money. So when they get a lot of money, I have clients that have gotten a lot of money, six-figure advances. I had a client recently got a six-figure advance. I had a conversation with them, 19-year-old kid. I said, listen, this is what you have to do. You got to, you got taxes to pay and all that, even though that's not really necessarily my job description. But, as an attorney, as a black attorney in particular, whose clientele is primarily black and Hispanic artists, I feel as I have a moral obligation to try to educate them a little bit about, you've got to take care of your money. And, the one particular client, within 5 weeks of getting, a six-figure advance, spent it all. I was like, oh, man, So, and this happens with athletes.
Yes,
it does. Not just, recording artists, athletes that go through it. If you don't have a financial education and you never had, you don't understand about taxes and all these different things, you're going to go spend it. And, it's unfortunate. And all you can do is try to hopefully educate them. But, conversely, I have another client that is doing extremely well. Now, he's kind of going the traditional route in the sense that he's hired a financial advisor. But these financial advisors, I keep them on their toes because I'll ask them certain questions and say, well, why are you investing in this? Why? Because my client has empowered me to do so, which, again, is not generally the norm. And he's got seven figures in his account.
Right.
And I'm very, very proud of him. He's just turned 20. And, it took a minute, but I had to explain to him, this is your retirement money. If you want to play around, play with the other monies you get from your doing your shows and your performances. But this big sum of money here, you got to let it grow. And he's listened thus far.
Well, one of the concepts that I teach about is the notion of residual income. And I know that has really resonated with you.
Absolutely.
When you proceed with some sort of legal agreement, you're looking for the residual aspect of that. Tell me about that shift in mindset from just, getting commission on a deal to the residual aspect of it.
Well, the way, from my perspective as an attorney, right, attorneys get paid a percentage of whatever the deal is that they negotiate. Usually, in the past, it's usually a one-time fee. But I've structured my payments or my compensation such that I continue to get a residual stream of income, deals that I work on. That's definitely a shift. And for artists, whether they realize it or not, to the extent that they write their own music or they compose their own music, they will get residual income because they have an ownership interest in the copyright to the songs that they create.
Mm-hmm.
And if those songs are successful, even though they don't always realize it, it is a stream of residual income that will last them their whole lives. A copyright is, lasts for the life of the copyright owner plus, I believe, 70 years. So if you're fortunate enough to write a great record, that is residual income that you will receive in the form of publishing royalties for the rest of your life, and then also you can pass on to your heirs or to your estate.
That is exactly right. And the number one rule in the music business these days is keep the publishing, right? If you're fortunate to be able to do that.
Correct.
And for those of us who sell products online, we also own that as a form of publishing, right? So there's residual income in a variety of different ways.
Correct.
Okay. This principle that you learned through covered call writing in the stock market of residual income has also influenced how you do business, correct?
Correct. I would definitely say that. I mean, absolutely, because covered calls are a form of residual income. They are residual income.
Yes.
I'll tell you the other thing, too, that is interesting to me is that the stocks that we purchase are stocks that I have found to not only be stocks that are increasing in value, but they also, most of them, pay dividends.
Yes.
Which are another form. I took your advice, and I had TD Ameritrade mail me my residual income checks.
Yes, so you can track them.
So I can track it. Just got one for $199.
There you go.
Right? So that's very, very seductive. Even if you're not doing covered calls, but you're investing in Dow stocks that pay dividends, you're still getting residual income.
Yes.
It's a model that, for me, it works increasingly well, because I will tell you there are some months where I don't trade. I'm busy, I'm traveling, I don't get a chance to trade as much as I'd like. So, but I'm comfortable in the fact that the stocks that you're recommending are stocks that are going to increase in value.
Yes, and you're getting paid. We call it getting paid to wait. Because you're still collecting those dividends.
Exactly.
Now I want to ask you one other thing, because as busy as you are, I know you just got back from China. You still come to the New York class as frequently as possible. What do you get out of being in that room with other people who are studying and profiting from the market?
I mean, I get to go through the exercises, which for me, it's very important to do them. I finally got a hang on it. It took me a minute, but I finally can follow along with the trades that you're teaching, the strategies that you're implementing, and then I get to bounce ideas off of my classmates, or to see how they're thinking about a trade, and that either lets me know whether I'm on the right path, or maybe I have to. Oh, you know what? I didn't think about doing it this way. Because as you always say, there's was it one stock market and there's a million ways to play it? Is that your little saying?
That's exactly right.
Right. But the other thing that always struck me, and I say this to my clients too, when they complain about how much money they're being offered for a particular date, like a show date or something like that. I say, listen, all money is good money.
Yes, that's one of our mantras in the Wealthy Investor. All money is good. You get a check for $195 from Verizon as a dividend, you're winning, right?
Absolutely. And so that is definitely something that I think is really important, because you're making money. Now, it can always be more, but man, you're making money as opposed to not making money.
Exactly.
All money is good money.
Yes, it is. All income is good income, and all residual income is great income.
One other good thing about going is that, at the end of the day, you really present it in a way that makes it easier to grasp, or makes it easy to grasp the concepts. So kudos to your acting background.
Well, I try to make every class is, we're in class for 3 hours. It's a story with a beginning, middle, and an end.
Yes,
and
it is.
And you know this, if I can work as much comedy into that class as possible, right? I know that the lesson will stick with people, right?
Yeah, you missed a side career as a stand-up comedian. You do extremely well.
Well, I'm not dead yet. You never know. You may come see me at Yuck Yucks in Chicago. I'll do a set some night. Hey, listen, we're almost out of time. I really have enjoyed hearing your journey. And I enjoy the fact that you're really also investing, right? So even if you're not always actively trading, you could be what we call building a position in the stock.
Listen, I just bought some Activision.
Mm-hmm.
I also, based on your philosophy, bought some more Apple because the iPhone 8 is coming. Like, I'm kind of like, I guess they call it trading on the news.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to Activision has got video games that they're creating, and Christmas is approaching. They're going to announce some new games, and so this is all the stuff that you taught me. And so I said, oh, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. Let me go and buy this stock now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll see what happens, when Christmas comes along, and then we'll figure out what you're going to tell us in terms of in January and February whether we keep the stock or we trade it or we sell it.
Yes.
As you say, is the date over?
Yes, because we don't marry stocks, we only date them, as I say in the program. That is
right.
correct. Okay, so we're running out of time here, but let me get your final thought. Where do you see yourself with this financial education that you have acquired? You come to class. Where do you see yourself in, let's say, the next 2 to 5 years with all of this?
I mean, my goal is to be in a position where I have residual income coming in for the rest of my life. So I'm looking at, I have a number that's on my refrigerator I look at every day. I'd like to be able to, at a minimum, be able to generate at least $50,000 a month for the rest of my life.
Right.
Primarily, I want to, covered calls is going to be one of the ways in which I do that. As you and I know, I'm also doing some stuff on the online world, information marketing, that kind of a thing. And some of the deals that I've worked on with clients that hopefully will continue to generate residual income for the rest of my life. That's ultimately, what I want to do. When you work for yourself, I don't necessarily have somebody paying me a pension and that kind of thing. I have no choice but to adopt strategies that will help me create my own pension plan, so to speak, for the rest of my life.
I think that is great. And if the Wealthy Investor Program has been a part of a positive influence,
absolutely.
That's the whole point of the program. Hey, listen, if people want to learn more about you, where can they go on the internet to find you?
They go to my website, which is www.raclawfirm.com, or they can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Bob Celestin. That's BOBCELESTIN as in Nancy.
Hey, listen, you know how much I appreciate you and how much, if you and I get on the phone, it's going to be at least an hour because I have so much to learn from you, right?
And vice versa.
Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you. Hey, listen, thank you for coming on and sharing your journey with our audience. And we're going to check in back with you probably about a year from now. And who knows who you'll be representing at that time. But I want to hear how your trading and investing has progressed. Fair deal?
Fair deal, and I want to thank you for honoring me with this opportunity and thinking that feeling that what I have to say matters. So I really appreciate it, Tyrone, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks in New York.
You sure will. And I'll be back with you right after you take a listen to this.
You're listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Want to learn more about how to trade and invest in the stock market? Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products. That's thewealthyinvestor.net/products and order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success audio series. This easy-to-follow 5-CD audio series and manual will teach you the basics of how to buy and sell stocks, how to collect quarterly dividends for life, plus hidden income generating strategies like covered call writing and volatility trading. Start creating financial freedom right now. Get the financial education you need to get ahead. Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products.
One of the things I hope that you've learned today is that people of all levels of financial success need to have a financial education. What I have found in my work is that most people are going to inherit a large sum of money at some point, sell a house, get a raise, a bonus, and if you know how to put that money to work in the stock market, you can literally change your life. So as you're listening here today, I want you to make a commitment, and the commitment is to getting a financial education regardless of what may be in your brokerage account, saving, or your checking account. sometimes there's a momentum to just reaching out and getting started that changes things. So you can also go to thewealthyinvestor.net and download my free ebook, Trading Stocks for Wealth. Now, it's free, and start to learn about the wealthy investor approach to the stock market, because I want to be your teacher and mentor and help you change your life. Whoops, there's that music. That's my cue. I got to get out of here. But I'm Tyrone Jackson, the Wealthy Investor, saying it's always a pleasure to spend time with you, expand your consciousness, and help you get a financial education. I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Be sure to rate and review our show on iTunes. While you're on iTunes, be sure to click the subscribe button and you'll automatically receive our next episode.